It's 6 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. Select Board, April 7th. First item, agenda, the minutes.
Second that.
Discussion?
As
Questions?
always.
Beautiful minutes. So, have a motion to approve? He seconded it, so all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Board reports. Tracy? I have nothing at this time.
I just know that it's a public input set. And it typically be around zone.
We have the town managers.
Yes, thank you. Staff report, I'm happy to announce we have two new light equipment operators, Wesley Allen from Keenan and today, and Pass Ace. Big benefit to us. And that does heavy staffing the full staff in the first. Happy about that and for good. We still have a current opening officer. Did Wash candidate we had and the other that we getting. So the police chief has advertised that position, and we have gotten a handful of applications since now working on this and continuing to move forward with. I'm happy to announce, actually here, that we made a job offer that was accepted by Todd Thompson for the recreation director position. Talk to him in a minute if you want, but Todd's a longtime Enfield resident who's been involved with recreation with a focus in youth sports for approximately 30 years. Todd's been an employee of the Mascoma School District since 2016 and served as the athletic director for the Indian River School from 2017 to 2022. Prior to working at the school district, Todd worked in the healthcare industry where he gained project management, program development, budgeting, and other leadership skills. In the school Upper Valley Thunder Basketball League and NYSL, he's good rapport with many of the youth. Todd's knowledge and skill set, along with his relationships with the families in our area, make him. And then I'd also like to take a minute to really thank the Enfield Recreation Commission. They helped me screen a plethora of applications that we received, and then they, Jamie and Amy both sat in on interviews with me, and then I met with them before we got final. They did a lot to help through the process. And welcome Todd and give you guys the chance to put a face with the name. And
Yes, welcome to the town of Enfield. We're glad you're here.
yeah, my 8th grade is disappointed. I see them still. Yeah, no, we think it'll be a great relationship. I have talked with the principal of Indian River School and kind of same thing. He's sad to see Todd leaving, but he thinks it'll really help collaboration between schools and the recreation department. I think it'll be a great time moving recreation forward.
When does Todd begin?
He will be starting April 28th. With that, I will move on. May have seen the announcement go out for the Enfield Citizens Academy. As you guys know, it'll be an 8-class program designed to educate and familiarize citizens of the town with our municipal government and how things work here in the town of Enfield. The classes will run about an hour and a half to 2 hours long from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. There's no cost to enroll, so we're asking people to apply, and then I'll be working with the select board to choose between 10 and 15 applicants that we think would be great for our inaugural class to go through that. The other thing to think about, May session's coming up. It'll be May 22nd, and I'm going to need a select board member to help me that night teach the opening class, kind of an intro to government, and then I'll get you the date, but at the end of the program, we'll have a graduation ceremony as well, where either, I guess, as many like two from the select board can come help with the graduation part. Whitney Hall and public safety building projects are still going pretty well. Whitney Hall's been slow, as you guys know. We're working with Breadloaf to try to finish the stairwells and some other small items in Whitney Hall. It's really down to a few punch list items and then the carpeting and the flooring. It's one subcontractor there. We're trying to push along. The elevator inspection is scheduled for Wednesday morning, so if all goes well, we should have an elevator this week.
If you get a chance, can you swing him over to the community center? That's out of date as
No,
well.
it's not.
You've already done that one.
No, it was in date. We went and looked at it, redid it. It's within date right now.
Okay.
It's written really weird on the certificate. It looks like it's out of date, but that's the inspection date, and it's good for a year from.
Good.
So
Great.
we're good, but we have looked into that.
Great.
Yeah, and moving on to the public safety building, that project's going very well. We're still ahead of schedule and we're under budget. We haven't finalized the numbers to know how far under budget, but things are doing well. We have not used much contingency at all, and some of the allowances have come in a lot lower than we projected, and paint costs came in lower. So there's quite a few little places we've saved some money. Tentative substantial completion date is still early May. Most of the building has now received its finished coat of paint, and finish work has begun inside. They were hanging doors and stuff today, so it's really starting to come together. Cabinets have been installed, lights are going in. Last week, near the end of the week, they pulled permanent power in, and they were switching that over today. Once that's all complete, we'll be working on good to hit. So, and then today they started pouring concrete pads and sidewalks. Could be starting landscaping soon. The trailer will be pulled off site this week, so it's really coming to the final stages. It's getting exciting. On the .gov project, I've scheduled the beginning of the .gov transition for early May. We'll be working with a group called FNF. I've got SimQuest kind of connected with them. They're another tech group, but they do a lot of this .gov segue, if you will, or changeover. So working with SimQuest, we thought it was best to let SNS go ahead and do ours since they've done many other people's. Should be a pretty easy project. The kickoff of the project in May will be a full-on assessment of our IT system to see where there may be any vulnerabilities and ways that we can increase our cybersecurity. So it's always a good thing to have another company looking at what you can do. Once that's completed, we'll be working on preparing some new policies and implementing recommendations for their audit that they do for us. The fire department, the Enfield Fire Department, has been recognized as one of 77% about 174 departments in the state of New Hampshire that received a perfect score on their incident reporting this year. So nice to get recognized for doing all the reports that we were supposed to do and get done in a timely manner. So thank you, Chief Neely and the fire. In land use, the HOP grant we talked about, we're also working on preparations for community resilience building workshop that's coming up on Thursday, May 29th. And then Rob is working on the New Hampshire Planning Association Spring Conference that will be held here in Enfield on June 6th. It'd be nice to welcome planners from all over the state to come to Enfield, see what's happening here. On the DPW front, our winter seasonal plow driver is headed back to Pike next week for the paving season. I'd like to thank Brad Donnelly for his time that he spent here helping us out through the winter. We're pretty happy that he indicated he would be planning on returning next winter. So it's really nice to have that seasonal help during the winter time. Enfield DPW will be hosting a flagger training class here on April 22nd from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. By hosting this, Enfield gets 4 free slots in that class. So nice again to bring people to Enfield and to be able to get some free classes. Enfield roads are looking good. The highway will begin some light grading and raking to help them dry out. So if they go by your house, if they're just scuffing it up, don't worry, they'll be back to graded in the future. And then Q1 utility billing is complete and bills should be out sometime in the next week or so. Then on the police side, Corporal Smith and Ranker started their drug search certification school this week. And the PD is participating in a distracted driving enhanced enforcement that is grant funded. So they're about making sure that people are not on their cell phone. Then, as many of you know, police departments and sheriff departments around the state have signed on to ICE's 287G program. Wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about this. It's an issue that we've heard about a little bit, and just want to make sure we understand how we're 287G program is a section added to the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996, and it authorizes ICE, or the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to delegate to state and local law enforcement the authority to perform specified immigration operations under the agency's direction and oversight. With this, I've had discussions with the police chief on how the town police department would respond to these type of situations. After hearing some concerns, we thought it was good to select board, but look in here how we plan on creating this. I think first and foremost, make it very clear that we have no plans of signing on to Section 287G and agreement to do this. Through federal funding and other regulations, we do have obligations to support federal agencies if requested, and will continue to do so as we have for many years. We've assisted with the FBI, DEA, all federal organizations, and some of the grant requirements do require that we them, and I said other regulations. These requests usually come in as requests to respond and stand by for safety and security purposes. During this type of standby, our police department does stand by for the safety and security of both the officers and the residents. So I asked the chief to come in and just explain a little bit the response procedures and kind of how we do really plan on today's circumstance. Chief, if you'd like to take a minute of mine, I'll manage your time.
Sure, I'll be pretty brief, but tell you what happened. Federal agency, security, and any of those typically would have some federal judge looking to pick somebody up. if they, sometimes they come in and turn down and they, sometimes. Like, typically it's, it's the safety of law enforcement and for state that has intervened. Covers the header. As far as immigration stuff in general, due to the current climate, I hope my people have an understanding that if anything comes up, it's handled on a case by case basis. Areas of a new situation.
Have any other towns signed an agreement with ICE?
I don't know. I know the sheriff's Grafton County Sheriff's Department did, and the state police have.
Did the state police one went through?
Well, I've been told. Haven't followed what the, because frankly, I feel every PD around is signed it.
Can our officers be called into an adjacent town if necessary? For nice purpose?
That would.
Questions from
Canada, it's standard.
I think the way you've got it set up right now is very good.
Yes, Chief.
Just curious, what does sign on?
My understanding is that basically sign on, say, get some federal authority to do that.
And so that's how I understand it. I don't think there's.
So there's a kind of a big misunderstanding of we're local police. Job is to police and enforce and public safety for any fiction doesn't go any further. So and it applies to state law. So if somebody were to violate a federal law, so this kind of reaches a gap where it is a federal. And we were to federal law sign this agreement.
And federal people determine due process for abduction? Because that's what's been doing now. There have been abductions, not due process.
So again, I'll just reiterate, Enfield, our standard, that the federals come in, they have a warrant, which is signed by a judge. I don't want to, since abduction versus a warrant is a judicial judge, a federal judge who has said this person arrest warrant can be arrested under such and such crime.
And a federal judge is in New Hampshire?
There is one down, there is one in Concord or
Concord, Manchester.
It's Concord, Manchester area, yep. Sure.
Sir.
So as I understand it, this 287 would be basically deputizing your officers for ICE? If you chose to.
If we chose that, or do it, yep.
Yep.
You'll keep us appraised of any changes that might occur in this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Ed have a pretty, good, we talk pretty much daily,
Yeah.
keep them filled in on what's going on, so.
So I think this is a matter of great concern to this board and to this town. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any more questions from the board, the public? Okay, yes,
I'll just reiterate that it is a matter of great concern to the board and the town. I really appreciate you being proactive about discussing it with everyone.
Absolutely.
thank you. More from the town manager?
Nope, that's the end of my
That's-
report.
Okay.
Can you just tell us a few minutes about the status of Shed Street? Where are we?
I received I'll call it a draft and a red line version from DES. We're still working through the DES water monitoring stuff, whether we need to do more monitoring or not. And I'll be continuing to work with Oaks and Sons on moving that forward.
So is there anything that we as a town have to do at this point to satisfy DES?
We're gonna need to remove the railroad ties and a few of those things, but I'm trying to push the state to do that before we pay for something that I think is a state problem, but I'm not gonna let that delay the project.
But DES is not asking us to drill more monitoring wells at this time.
They're trying to determine whether we need to or not.
There's a bunch of cones that have been placed in various areas out there. Does that have anything to do with us?
Don't know.
Nothing that
Not
you're
that I
aware
know
of. They seem to have been placed in particular areas. Okay.
Thank you. So on to the business at hand on the agenda. First item is the Arbor Day proclamation, and I cannot for the life of me find it.
Well, that's because it's out of order. It's like the third from the last page in the record. Sorry about that.
Aha. Oh, thank you.
Well,
Sorry.
So how deeply do we want to go into this Arbor Day?
We read it.
Read it.
The whole thing?
I like it.
Yeah. I can read it if you want.
I'll read it. In 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and that holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Therefore, we, Catherine D.P. Stewart, Eric Russell, John W. Klug, Alice Kennedy, and Tracy Young, Select Board of Enfield, New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the town of Enfield, New Hampshire. And we urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, we urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations, dated the 7th day of April in the year 2025. We need to vote on this?
Don't.
No,
It's a
we
proclamation.
proclaimed
We
it
proclaim
in my best proclamation voice.
with
Nice turn.
good inflections too.
You'll
Yeah.
find it later.
Okay. Authorization of CIP fund expenditures. We have the fire truck cascade system coming up first.
Yeah, so we have a few different things on here that we'll be talking to you about today. A couple of them were things on the CIP year, and two of them were actually slated for next year, but we wanna see if we can get authority to spend those now, and we'll discuss with you why. So, Chief, if you wanna go ahead and come forward. Yeah,
The information was included in your packet, I believe, for some of the explanation of the Cascade machine. Which it is our breathing air machine, our current machine. 24 years old, the company is no longer in business and, service and parts are slim to none. And so talking with Ed, we decided to do some pricing, do some research. One of my concerns is moving the old machine up to the new building and then next year purchasing a new machine. I don't think moving the old machine will do it any good. That's the reason for moving it up into the queue for this year. The three quotes that I have gotten, they're for the same equipment, do the same thing, and they all include installation, which would be in the building. Warranties are almost exactly the same. There's a couple differences, but all the companies we've done business with in the town through the fire department, my recommendation is the American Air Works at the $38,036. That's a 12 to 14 week delivery. If we order it now, then that would come in very close to what we're looking for an occupancy time. And the old one can stay in the Union Street. We can continue to use that, fill this one if there was a delay or for some reason. The slated amount to be spent in 2026 was 60,000. But I feel confident for our needs that this American Air Works at the 38,000 change. It's very adequate and will serve us well. Thank you.
I'd also like to note that this was in the CIP earlier, and we were applying for assistance to firefighter grant program, so we kept pushing it to that next year, knowing that we wanted to put it in the new station. When we had the opportunity, we did apply for the grant for this year for assistance to firefighter grant, and we did not get it again. So that's another part of the reason we're coming to you a little bit early. I think coming early, putting it in the new station and getting it 20,000 cheaper than we had budgeted for.
And I don't have a great deal of confidence in grants going forward potentially. So waiting for a grant, I'm not comfortable.
Any salvage value with the old equipment?
I've reached out to two departments that still have the twin to the machine,
Yeah.
and I'm waiting to see if they're interested in it. I think we'd want to sell it for parts.
Right.
As is, where is for parts, and if anybody's interested, then we just have to entertain what the offers would be. There may be some value.
Good. I think it's a good deal. I think you've done your homework nicely, and getting it back from the 60,000 to 38,000 is, well done.
Questions, comments? Sounds like a good plan.
I'll make a recommendation, a motion to authorize the town manager to American Air Works for an amount not to exceed $38,036 for the purchase and installation of a Cascade Air system for the new public safety building, and hereby authorize the town manager or his designees to take such action and execute all documents as may be necessary.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
It's Jim's turn.
Next, we have a DPW truck. And a loader and a brine maker. One-stop shopping, right?
So, I don't know which comes first on the agenda. I guess
The truck, I think.
the truck, okay. So, we've been doing a truck almost every year. We have kind of three levels of trucks. We have the heavy 10-wheeler trucks, municipal 6-wheelers, and then it drops down to there to like pickup trucks and so forth. So this one is one of the lighter weight trucks. It's gonna replace a 2012. We bought two in 2012. And this will replace one of those two, the worst one at the time that we take delivery. Will probably be marketed on one of the online auction sites, because I don't think that the dealers are interested in offering any sort of trade. Especially they're not interested in offering a trade now for a truck that's probably not gonna be delivered till maybe April or May, June of next year. So, the unit that I think they've selected is a Ford F600. And we are getting it outfitted with Viking plows. We have, most of our plows are Viking brand. And we will, we're looking at getting it through Sourcewell, which is it's a buying cooperative, so that we actually have access to bids that have been done by, towns kind of all over the Northeast. And dealers agree to use those prices, for us. So I think there's some savings that gets recognized there. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but it will be a cabin chassis will come. We'll pay for that, and then we wait for a slot to get the truck built, gets a body installed, a nose plow, a wing plow, and a sanding system.
Questions? So we only pay for the cabin chassis now, and we don't pay for the fit up until next spring?
Yeah, the cabin chassis is probably gonna be later this year, probably be, I'm guessing August, but the Viking got backed up a lot during COVID because there was no trucks to build. And so now the floodgates have opened, so it's getting hard to schedule that. And you used to have 5 or 6 different outfitters to choose from, and now we're down to really 1 or 2 in the Northeast.
So we don't actually pay for the 81,800 until next spring.
Yeah, right.
The fit up, we don't actually
Yes,
have
right.
to write a check for that until next spring.
No, that's right.
Now I'll ask a question that kind of applies to the other item, the loader as well. Any chance that tariffs are gonna get stuck on one of these stupid things?
That's a good question. I mean, again, they're offering these prices, and if we sign on the dotted line, they're, we get that price. I'm assuming that will be figured in. I mean, that they're gonna, they price these with that in mind. That the cat loader delivery probably won't be affected, because I think that is in the Northeast already. The trucks, on the other hand, I'm not sure how that's going to affect it, but
On the loader, I think it's important to know, we work with CAT and it's been ordered, but it's ordered in such a way that if town meeting or the select board decides not to fund it, that it just goes and they'll sell
it
it.
goes on their inventory and.
So we did do that. It's locked in and it's on its way. And we did that it takes forever to get them. So
Now, perhaps when we sign the documentation, you can insert a line that says tariffs cannot be added at the tail end.
Yep.
well, once we sign it, it's done. It's locked in. The price is locked.
So long as it has that line.
Well, and
It's unique that obviously didn't really exist until last Wednesday.
Well, and I will say
And these
that,
bids precede that.
yeah, the Viking price, I mean, that one, we were surprised that one came in as high as it did. And I think that there is some uncertainty priced into that.
Do you think you will be able to get about 8,000 as was projected when we sell it on the open market?
I think so, yeah. I mean, again, a lot can happen between now
Oh,
and
no
another
question.
whole winter season.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the expenditure of up to $156,250 from the CIP fund for the purchase of a municipal plow truck priced at $156,250. And further authorize the town manager or their designee to take such actions and execute all documents that may be necessary.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Next, we have the loader.
I'm kind of the same situation, only that one, the timetable's a little quicker. We have a unit that was purchased brand new by the town in 2001, I believe. And, it's been a great unit. I think it has 12 or 13,000 hours on it right now. And we're gonna be getting one that's very similar in size and stature, and it will have a mount that allows us to mount the attachments that we have. We've got a boom and we've got a platform for cutting trees, a set of forks and an extra bucket, which will all go on the new unit coming in. And, unlike the truck dealers, the loader dealer, they're happy to have a trade. And so they offered us, I thought, a pretty fair amount, given the amount of salt and rust on this one that we have. But my guess is they'll bring it in and probably tear it apart, repaint it, and then offer it to somebody, because they're pretty good machines.
Questions?
And you saved a few dollars on this
Yeah.
round, which is, you've got it down to 230 versus the 250, which we put in the CIP.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is a loader?
The loader, it's an articulated machine that has a big scoop on the front, and you go into the salt, scoop it up and dump it onto the dump trucks. And, we do use it for, lifting heavy things with the forks and so forth. We have a platform that goes on the fork, so you can get a guy up, 10, 12 feet in the air, so he can cut branches off trees. And
Is it a vehicle or an
Yeah.
attachment to a vehicle?
no, the loader's the vehicle. I can show you if you want to go look.
We'll look.
Can take you out.
We'll wait.
Stop by anytime.
Bob the builder class.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just Google loader too, you'll kind of get the idea. But yeah, it's a very important piece of equipment, especially in the winter time, because it puts all the material on the trucks to take out, to spread on the roads and so forth.
Okay,
Make a motion to authorize the expenditure of up to $205,000 from the CIP fund for the purchase of a cat loader priced at $230,000, less $25,000 trade-in of the current town loader, and further authorize the town manager or their designee to take such action and execute all documents that may be necessary.
second,
Second.
we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. And finally, the brine maker.
Rainmaker. So we had put in the capital program a couple of years ago, when Jeremy first came, a brine maker, and it was sort of scheduled to be purchased this year, but we did put it out because of, other things. In the meantime, we were talking with L&M Construction the other day, and they have a brine maker, which is the same unit that the town of Hanover operates. They bought them at the same time, and L&M was being asked by Hypertherm to treat their parking lot with brine. But they have a pervious pavement surface to their parking lot. So the brine would just filter down through, and it didn't actually sit there and be a residual to grab the snow and ice and so forth. So it actually was kind of an experiment that went wrong. And so it's been taking up their space in their shop, and they have a truck that had a machine to spread the stuff, a sprayer and a tank. And they said, we want to get rid of the whole damn thing. So we kind of acted on it, and we ended up purchasing the thing using our, regular budget. And, that cleans out our new equipment fund completely. And we would like to hopefully get all or some of it back from the CIP, and it would save a tremendous amount for next year, which was the sort of rescheduled purchase of the brine maker. And we actually ended up with some brine in tanks that we need to move. So, that stuff's worth, $1 or $2 a gallon. And so it was a good deal for us. And, hopefully you guys will consider sort of replenishing out of the CIP. And Tracy did bring up earlier that I think it's under the capital improvements threshold.
Yep.
By a little bit. And, but again, we're not done with this yet. We're gonna need to install it, and there'll be fittings. There might be some piping and maybe some electric work that needs to be done, which I think would push it just barely over the threshold.
Well, and I think with that, it's all in the planning process. You know, it's budgeted for next year at 25,000. So that's really what this would have cost. And I think allowing that money to be transferred back so they can do business as usual this year, them saving $15,000 for the town by finding this deal.
Agreed.
is a
Oh, yeah.
Great
I
deal.
agree. The money is sitting there at 0.1% interest. We're saving a lot more than that here. To wait for a new machine and wait another year to have gotten it. I agree, it was a part of the CIP plan, because in the planning, it was going to be over $10,000. Because they were good enough to get under 10,000, they should still get reimbursed, because it was there. And it has no effect on CIP's budget this year.
No.
Thank you.
Any salvage value out of the homemade brine spreader that you fabricated?
I think we're gonna be using the tanks that were part of that, but certainly the agitation and that probably not a lot. But those pieces are used for other things, like when we do the, dust control and that kind of stuff. It's similar equipment, so it won't be wasted.
Sell it to M&M. They don't seem to know what they need.
Right.
Sir,
Hi, will you be treating all the roads with it or just certain roads?
It would be, it's for pavement, and so it would be the asphalt roads. And we're gonna focus on the higher traveled roads. Cause those are the ones that if you don't get to them right away and people drive over snow and it gets compressed down into ice, then it's very difficult and it costs a fortune to get that down. It doesn't plow off because it's been iced. And you see that on Route 4 all the time, Dry Bridge Hill, that happens a lot. Because, between 3 o'clock, it starts snowing at 3 o'clock, and by 4 o'clock, there's ice everywhere because, they haven't put any salt out and cars are just, packing that snow down to ice.
And how many roads can the one brine do?
There's a prescription, so there's a number of gallons, and I don't know exactly what that is off the top of my head, but.
What, do you have to come back here to fill it up?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
water?
exactly, but it's not a huge amount. I mean, a 600-gallon tank, I think it might do 8 or 10 lane miles of road. And so, you could do all of the pavement with 3 loads, but again, I don't think we'll be doing Shaker Boulevard. Just because, it's flat and people don't drive too quickly there, but the hills like Lock Haven and Methodist Hill and those places will probably.
Actually, as you exit, you've done the exit of Shaker Boulevard, just as it slopes up to Shaker Hill.
Yes, yeah,
And it's been very effective. And then that stretch of Shaker Hill can be tough because there's a slight bend ahead of it coming
Yep.
downhill. It's been very effective in that area.
yep. And so that would be what we would do is, do the, hills and tricky spots, cold spots,
Exactly.
so.
Doctor,
Are there limits regarding nearby wetlands or other areas that you cannot use this sort of equipment?
No, not really, because the beauty of it is that it when it's applied, it's liquid, so it kind of sticks to the road. Whereas, salt kernels will bounce into the ditch and then get hydrated by snow, ice, rain, whatever, and wash off. So it's better for some situations, and it works at a lower temperature. So, if we pre-treat, and it's 10 degrees, this has more effect than trying to post-treat with this road salt at that temperature.
Use a lot less salt overall.
That's right, exactly, yeah.
Am I correct that the brine itself, the initial batch that you then dilute is actually a solution of salt and molasses.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so it kind of bonds to the road.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Questions from the board? Motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the transfer of $9,500 from the CIP CRF fund to the new DPW equipment line for the reimbursement of the purchase of a brine maker and spray system, and further authorize the town manager or their designee to take such actions and execute all documents that may be necessary.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
And it's goodbye, Jim. Well done.
and it's unanimous.
Take advantage of Ellen whenever you can.
The
Pavement.
paving RFP. There we
Paving
go.
RFP.
This is Jim's meeting.
Hard to get rid of me.
Another good deal.
Yeah, so we put out an RFP for pavement. We selected a two or three places that we plan to pave this year, and we sort of ballparked it based on last year's price on how much we could do. So we put that amount on with the caveat in there that we could add or subtract based on budgetary, restraints or surpluses. We put out, I think, 5, and then we advertised it, but we got four proposals back. And you guys can see the results on that little table that I gave you. And once again, Blacktop was extremely competitive compared to the others. They have a plant in town. Their plant is not bidding on interstate work, so they're not holding back for that or, putting, because of the level that they're at, this is where they want to work.
Yeah.
And they've been really competitive with us for the last, I think it's been 6 years,
Yeah.
since we've had another contractor. And so you can see that, it's $8 less than the next lowest, and several of them were over $100 a ton. They also were the only one that bid on, having us go and hauling our own pavement. I was shocked that Pike didn't do that, but again, if they're running 50 trucks, they don't want Enfield in line. They want their own trucks, turning it over. So anyway, I think that the bids are pretty good. There's a good chance that they will hold that bid for the Hughes Park project as well. And so if that one, if they do the parking lot for that price, that's great, because typically, parking lots are 20 or 30% higher. Just because of the fooling around, but we also promised that we would do the fooling around, editing the drainage and, sweeping it and doing some of those kinds of things that, slow them down a lot.
So we get this price for Whitney Hall as well?
That one is, I think, on the books, and I think that was from last year, so that one may be a little bit better.
Yeah, it might be a little cheaper, but we already have this one, and we're working with Bertzoff with Blacksoft to do the overlay on Mascoma Lakeside Park.
Yeah.
So they will be doing all of those.
Well, they sort of locked themselves into this price. Certainly, we wouldn't want to see a higher price for any of the work done, even if it wasn't in this. Right.
I'll make a motion to award the 2025 paving contract to Blacktop Inc. of West Lebanon, New Hampshire, for a price not to exceed $86.69 per ton in place and $78.00 per ton at the plant FOB. And hereby authorize the town manager or his designees to take such actions and execute all documents that may be necessary.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Thanks. Getting the road.
Okay.
You want to stop by, like, email the picture.
Email me a picture.
I'd ask for a ride if I were you.
The bucket,
Absolutely.
on that platform.
That would be a
Citizens Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next up, we have the vendor policy update regarding food trucks.
So as we've placed in your packet, we've had a couple people talking to us about food trucks in town. One of them wants to park at Mascoma Lakeside Park, and the other one wants to park at a private business. We have done some stuff in the past a little bit, but I've been talking with Rob, And we, instead of recreating the real wheel, we thought our vendor permit here worked really well for food trucks. That's what we have used in the past. But we wanted to do a few updates. One of the updates is just adding the location of Mascoma Lakeside Park. That was, I think, not in existence when this was written back in the day. We updated the daily permit fee to $10 a day, $50 a week, or $200 for the season, which I think is very reasonable. But it did go up a little, so that helps the town some. We, instead of just saying all trash needed to be removed, we thought it would be good to put a section in there that stated they needed to provide their own receptacles and remove the trash. And then just reiterate in there that they have to be registered with the state of New Hampshire to have a food truck. So that was really the updates we wanted to do and bring to the select board, and if you guys look through it,
So
talk
is it
about it.
one of the food trucks is gonna be parked next to a current business or?
One of the ones we talked about was by the brewery when they opened
Oh,
it, so
okay.
they could have some food outside the door there.
Uh-huh.
Not gonna have a kitchen inside,
Oh, they're not.
no.
Okay.
They will have to serve food, but they're not gonna have a commercial kitchen in there or anything, so they thought it'd be nice to be able to have a food truck there for people, and
I don't
We are-
know, but is that a zoning issue? Is that something that ought to go through them?
no. Not if it's not a permanent fixture there, if they just pull in one evening and serve food for an hour or two,
But it's gonna be there overnight.
probably
Well,
not, but maybe.
But they're allowed to park on their private property.
Right. Yeah, and it fits within the zoning regulation. I mean, Rob had no problems with it on
Yeah.
a zoning standpoint. It
Well-
was just getting the proper permits.
Well, as this is written, right, it has to be a registered vehicle. You know, it's not like it's a trailer they can drop off. Well, I guess the trailer can be registered, but it has to be a registered and able to move. It's not. I guess my question is, particularly around like Lakeside Park, what happens if like 8 food trucks decide that Saturday's a great day to be down?
Well, I will call them back. They have to get registered.
No, I know, no,
Part
I,
of it, and I've already told this person that's called me that I wanted to be there to say, this is where you will park. It's-
yeah. Well, I
We
guess
could
what-
add that line right on their permit application is a proposed location.
But I think my real question is trying to anticipate, you know, if there's, because Lebanon's going through this right now, if it becomes popular.
Yes.
You know, there's obviously a very limited amount.
Yeah.
That could be there, and how is that scenario going to be dealt with?
Yeah, I look at this exactly based on my knowledge of what Lebanon has
Yeah.
and is currently dealing with. I have a question about overnight parking. So in any location that you've listed, whether it's Hughes, Shaker or Shacoma, et cetera, I assume no overnight parking for any of those.
We can Put that in here that they need to leave.
Because our current parking regulation says they can't park overnight, so I think.
I know, but I think reemphasizing it here
It
would be important.
subject to that.
I had a question on Shacoma Beach. Where?
There's no, this is a vendor permit. It's not a food truck permit. So if someone wanted to wheel up with a hot dog cart or something. This.
That was my
permit would be the
question,
same
yeah.
Permit.
Yeah, so that was my thought, that if it was an ice cream cart or a hot dog cart, they could fit in the parking lot, but other than that, a vendor truck is not gonna fit in the parking lot. While someone's trying to load or unload a boat. And there's no parking on the beach side.
No, like I said, this is a vendor permit that we're making fit for food trucks. It's not a food truck permit that we're. So if someone wanted to walk down the street selling something, they need a vendor permit.
I would think that we would not want more than one food truck at Lakeside Park at any time. So I think we should designate one parking space with a sign, food truck only.
I don't wanna prohibit someone from parking there if there's no food truck.
Yeah, I wouldn't
No,
designate any spot for it. I would. And we can add a sentence in here somewhere if we want, that it just. You know, any food truck parking on any of these properties needs to be. Approved, permitted, and work with town staff to designate where they're gonna park.
So with this permit application, as I'm reading it, and it's, let's say it's a food truck. And they pay for the fee. It's not a per location fee. They could move around.
They can move around.
think adding a park like a Gill Park where the sign is actually pretty important. It's-
I just don't wanna use up a limited parking space.
Yeah, I didn't.
For a vendor truck.
Space if possible.
I mean, ultimately, you're gonna have a situation someday where two food trucks show up.
Yeah.
And then is the town gonna have to untangle that?
They would have to be permitted before they showed up.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a permit for a season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Means you can just show up whenever you want.
And go to any of these locations that you want.
No, we're being practical,
Okay.
through some of
Yeah.
the scenarios. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or it's a very nice day and the citizens take up all the spaces.
It's
Tough
Old
luck.
Homes Weekend.
Yeah. Right. So, I don't know.
I think the vendor approach is a good one. Like, this is a good approach to, there's just a lot to think through.
Yes,
What, when is this going to be allowed? Spring, summer and fall or what time of the year?
good question.
There are winter events, so I wouldn't wanna say that you can't do that.
Right, I suppose if
I
someone
think it-
wants to be there in the bitterest,
Sure.
coldest day of winter,
I think if you're around.
To ice fishermen.
yeah.
Go
Yes.
for it. So many businesses. Use that parking lot as.
Yeah.
Ice week.
Okay.
Well, so long as it's clear that there's no overnight parking at any of these locations, and I know that that's what it's currently written, but I would reemphasize it here.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on it. Yeah, I mean, I think the things that are gonna come up that we are not anticipating, or we're thinking, oh, that's not gonna be a big deal, and maybe it'll be a big deal.
One of the notes I had for myself, although you've written removal of trash, and that's a good paragraph,
Excellent.
I would reemphasize it by inserting the words off-site. And then on paragraph I, because this is no longer just a permit, the last word which says subsection, I would change to the word policy. Because this is now a vendor update policy. And you may want to move it from, the section on the town website where it presently sits to the ordinances and policies subsection. I'd like to see it reviewed by the town board once a year as well. Hear from the public.
I'm sure we're gonna notice if,
I think we'll notice it, but I'd like there to be a process where also it, come post Labor Day or something.
Yeah.
This board has to actually hear from the public as to any concerns that might have occurred.
I have a comment.
yes,
In the trash part, my biggest concern with this was the possibility of trash. And I kind of liked the intent of the sentence that you crossed out. So, I mean, maybe that's overreach, maybe we can't say that, but this only says that they have to provide their own receptacles and they have to be emptied daily. But I liked the intent of the crossed out sentence, all debris originating from the operation must be removed from the public property daily. It seems like that has been lost in the,
Leave it all in.
I'd leave it in, yes, good point,
Good, good note. I'd leave it all in.
thank you.
Is this going to be only town property? Because, they can't go to Enfield Shaker Museum and park in there.
No,
They could go to the ball field there, right? Okay, or the,
Yes, Shaker Recreation Fields is listed as one location. But no, they can't do any private property
okay,
It says
per se.
they can in here, but they need to work with the private
Right.
property owner.
Right.
They still need a vendor permit for the town.
you're going to identify where those properties are, right? So that they know where they can go and can't go.
What's listed on the permit application is Hughes Park, Shaker Recreation Fields, Shakoma Beach, Mascoma Lakeside Park, and sidewalks on Main Street, Route 4, and Shaker Hill Road. I'm not sure where the sidewalks, what you mean by
Yeah,
sidewalks on
Up to
Shaker
the
Hill
church,
Road,
up to
but
the church.
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
than at the church, but
Yeah.
sidewalk of the church, but not the church parking lot, that's private again.
Right.
Yeah.
Although somebody's parking a bus there and I don't know who gave them permission.
Okay,
So we need to have some
Church
parking language.
because people were trying to park in their parking lot to use the vendor.
They were concerned at Halloween, I can tell you that.
what was your question?
So we just need to have some parking language.
Yeah.
Added.
But good plan.
All
I
right,
think I'm gonna leave it a little open. I'll bring it back to you, but I just wrote down like parking for food trucks must be approved by town staff prior to juice. And if we authorize, even if we authorize the same one, the same spot,
Right.
the first one there is gonna get it.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be the tricky part is I think that particularly some locations can handle two, but some,
Yeah, if we
We
get
really only handle
multiples,
one
we'll
and-
let them know that. It's-
yeah, then first come, first serve.
Yeah.
Bridget Labrie has a question.
pardon?
Bridget Labrie has a question.
Bridget,
Hey there. So I was just curious, when you mentioned being worried about potential multiple trucks and multiple times and places, but I'm guessing that recreation still has calendars, in which case if this is flowing through a Parks and Rec or usage, there can be a calendar so that they know who is where and when, especially if they have to go through the application. And that might be part of it, right? Is ask, like, I think you just said, asking before they're going to appear so that we can make sure. Is that kind of part of the plan?
We'll have some permitting software and stuff too, but I think until we get too much in logistics on scheduling food trucks, let's make sure we have a multiple food truck problem.
Right.
Also, I assume this does not apply to the fair.
No, they have their own event permit. Be there.
okay,
There's just one more question. So if it isn't working out, what is our like recourse? Can we like revoke their permit? if They're super messy.
Yeah, we can revoke a permit at any time.
And never issue it again.
okay. So,
But I also don't think we're gonna have the Lebanon problem because we don't have the Lebanon crowd.
right, we don't have that much of a
They're
market,
busy, but
absolutely right.
we'll probably support one on our busier weekends and stuff. That's going to Lakeside Park, but I think 2 or 3 trucks is gonna be.
And the one next to the brewery, probably.
Yeah, and that'll be scheduled events. It won't be like they're just pulling in there to sell food. It'll be, hey, we're having an event this weekend or something, and
But as you say, that's private property, so that doesn't go through this.
it'll go through a vendor permit still.
They'll still require a vendor permit to park on
I believe it,
Whole Mystic property, because that is private property.
I believe they have to have a vendor permit to operate a food service in town.
Right, and then they have to be licensed by the state. It's not easy. So are
So
we,
what is an abutting business permit for $10? What is that?
I don't know exactly, but I think it's what we're just talking about.
Oh, you didn't put that on there.
This is our old permit and I had Ron.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Maybe you can strike that out since we don't know what it is.
We'll define that.
So for a private business to put it on their business property, they'd have to go through this,
They're
even though it's
supposed to.
their property.
I believe they're supposed to. Most places require that.
we're good? We'll move on to the next topic. SB 2, deliberative session date and time.
But they sneak ahead of us. We were all set.
Well, we thought we were all set, but yeah, we found out soon after we had that meeting that the morning that we picked on January 31st was the same time that the school was doing their deliberative
I'm
session.
sure they got there first.
I'm sure they did. So we recommend moving the time, date and time to either the afternoon of the 31st or the 7th in the morning.
I have no doubt that in future years, frankly, our agenda may fit in an afternoon, but for the first year, I think it needs to be a separate day.
I think for the first year doing it at the same time, people are used to, add some value to. I'd go with the Saturday.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
following Saturday then, therefore it'd be February 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no doubt, in a couple of years, next year after the first year, we may review that.
Yeah,
We may
we'll see how
say,
it goes.
listen, like some towns do school board and the deliberative session on the same day, but we're not at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, does.
Yeah, I know they do. Yeah, Plainfield also does.
36.
So February 7th at 9:00.
With no possibility of a snow day.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what-
Or else you could do it Sunday, February 8th. You can't do it none, that's right, it closes out at the 7th, doesn't it? Then so be it.
You know, we're tough, we're New Englanders, right?
We bought a new
Who
plow.
knows,
where is it gonna be?
oh,
At EVS.
At the village school, at the EVS.
I'll make it then.
don't forget.
I'll bring it then.
You can get there?
Oh, we'll have to, we should, as soon as we schedule, because certainly at that time of year, those courts are, that court is used every Saturday morning. We'll have to see if they can accommodate that.
Good point. Thank you. Should we vote on this? Do a motion to have our deliberative session on February 7th,
So moved.
second,
At EVS,
At ABS.
At EVS.
At 9 o'clock.
at 9
at
o'clock.
9:00.
So moved.
And we have a second. Thank you. All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Where's it going to be?
Enfield Village School.
at Bill Village School.
All right. We're down to administrative items.
Bring it back in and we have them ready to sign, so no discussion needed unless you guys have questions or concerns, but I think most of those are pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Yes, I didn't get all of them.
Yeah, I don't feel like I have that.
I don't
I
have,
don't have it either.
They should have been in your electronic packet, and you guys asked last time not to put them in your printed packet.
I did see it in that. I will forgive you. I'm fine with the current use applications for
I did read
taking
them
it
on the
part of my, I
electronic
did read
version,
those,
so,
they're fine.
and,
And
they
they're-
make
And I did
sense.
read the intent to excavate for Conkey, and that's certainly fine.
Yeah,
You wanna look at them, they're in here.
And I did read the elderly solar and veterans tax exemption. These are the ones that I'm listed that I saw are just the people who have so far applied.
recent ones.
Yeah, the
Those
recent,
of us, some of us, it goes year, but we get it every year without applying.
Yeah, we have abatements and other exemptions and
veterans
things
rolls.
coming, so we're trying to get stuff to you so you don't get it all at one time.
Right, right.
I would note that if somebody's looking for, and no one is apparently yet looking for the hearing exemption, it is buried on the state website underneath the veterans exemption. It is not a separate form as these others are.
One thing that struck me about the current use application, one of the current use applications, I did not realize that a person could have less than the required amount of land in Enfield,
Yes,
but if there was land in Canaan contiguous to it, that counted.
you can jump town lines. I looked that up too.
Jump town line.
Yes,
Good piece of information.
it is interesting to see that.
And
Yeah,
it actually proves I read the stuff.
I did too. I had to look it up myself because I thought it was funny. He only had 4 acres on the Enfield side.
Yes, I said, what?
It's his original,
Same site.
yeah, same thing as normal.
So, okay.
I've looked at that, yes, thank you.
Are we passing things around for signature or not?
We're answering a question online for you.
Do we have any public comment?
Oh,
Public comment.
Yeah.
I apologize. Comments
you
from the
guys-
public, yes.
One more.
I've got
Clear answer.
one comment and one question. I only had encountered Todd, on Zoom, with some of the school advisory stuff that I was doing during COVID. But I've heard wonderful things about him from community members who had been, a bit put off, let's say, by, in recent years. And so I look forward to that and so to say.
And it's not the-
Secondly, a question about process regarding, the community nursing, contract. We've heard today and heard previous meeting
The one by-
that, the Recreation Commission has been actively involved in vetting, the candidates for the Recreation, Department Manager. I checked with, less than a quorum of the, members of the, Community Nursing Committee whom I
This
happen
one's
to
gonna take a
know.
while.
And none of them had been involved at all in the selection for the contract for the community nurse. They had been involved in getting funding for up to 3 years, for the community nursing, including what's being used currently and what was intended to be used for the contract for at least the next 2 years. And possibly beyond that, depending on, the decisions of the town. So what is the process? What's the difference between the Recreation Commission and another,
Well, you
committee
those,
that
can I
is
do
appointed
these? Go,
by
please.
the select board? In the same way as the Rec Commission is.
So their whole charge was to review data and to see if the program was worthwhile or not. It was not ever their charge to run, manage the community nursing program.
And is the Recreation Commission's role other than advisory?
Yeah, it's their charge. I mean, their charge before was to help run recreation, and now that they're with the rec director, we're in the middle of moving that charge, but it's to be an advisory committee to move those forward.
So, I mean, the committee, the community nursing committee was basically told that their role from here on soon to be disbanded, I think.
No, they were talked to, they voted that,
They voted to disband.
they voted.
And I was surprised it wasn't on the agenda today.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And,
Yeah, I didn't put it on. here,
When
but
did they do
voted.
that?
last
We
week.
talked at the last meeting after talking to the select board.
They were also told that that their role from here on would be separate and to try and continue to fundraise. I don't think that's gonna continue, for very long, with that sort of, treatment of citizens who have been actively involved for, a number of years.
Thanks. Good luck. I'll take back once it gets around to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, John took those from me, so he had something to do. Cause this thing coming around is huge.
Thank you for
Is
listening.
that what happened, everybody?
No. I think it might just be the same thing.
So just to pick up on your point, then, what you're suggesting is that following the dissolution of that committee in a year and a half or two,
Well, what we had talked about at the select board meeting was whether we disbanded that committee or not after we moved from Lebanon to the contract nurse, as recommended by myself and Community Nurse Connection, that most towns don't have a formal town committee that does that. So I talked to them about whether they wanted to maintain being a formal town committee that, you know, took minutes, had quorum requirements, all of that, or if they wanted to move back to almost like a Friends of Community Nursing program like they were when they started and raised the funds for the committee. And after some discussion, they voted that they would rather move towards the Friends Committee part of that and get away from being a formal town committee and to continue to support community nursing.
so my only concern is in a year and a half or two, once it's reestablished and up and running again, who raises money for the, at that point?
Well, and that's what we talked to them about, that what we really need at this point, I think we've established the fact, which was their whole charge of whether this was a viable service that we needed to continue to do or not. And that really what we need moving forward is kind of like a friends group that'll continue to raise some money and help with marketing.
Right.
Whether they need to be a formal select board town committee or not. I guess ultimately gonna come back to you guys, but when we had the initial discussion, the select board asked that we talk to them about that before we make a decision at this time.
Yes, then.
So did we, or will we ever review like necessity type data?
We can bring you some data. The problem, and like I
Where
told
is
you
this
guys at
going
the
now?
last meeting when we talked about the town nurses, we have
Sir?
we have so little data here that it's all completely aggregated, Lebanon and Grantham. So we don't have Enfield specific numbers, but just have useful scores. And we know we visited 33 different people through the year of last year.
41 contacts, I believe.
Okay.
Do we have anyone on the screen that wants to speak?
No.
Okay.
So what kind of success have you had in rehiring a nurse for that program?
We've hired one.
You have.
I told you that, yeah.
I guess you did tell us that, thanks.
Yeah, we went through all the background checks, all of that's
Right.
done. We're moving into implementation there. I think they're meeting with her today to issue cell phones and iPads and all the stuff they need. That should be up and running soon.
And officially, she remains she's a contract employee of the town.
Yeah, we're contracted with her to provide a service.
Yeah.
So it's very much like the Lebanon service, but we're working with Community Nurse Connection and her, and it's a straight contract with her to provide services.
Yeah. Hourly or per diem?
Hourly.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. I'm sorry to have to bring this up, but I want to see what steps you're gonna take for septic inspections on places that are notorious being right by rivers or streams feeding into Knox River and other places. And also including people who supposedly are connected up to the sewer lines that you people, as it's recently been determined that some people were putting their sump pump water into the sewer systems. Okay, so I want to know because we all agree that it's a good idea. Okay, that's not the problem. The problem is, what about all these other places? For example, in Sugar Boulevard, right by Knox River, there's two homes that are sitting right there, close to the stream, and one is flooded all the time, okay? It's not included because it's not on the lake, okay? All past proctors, all those places there's no sewer systems up there. So where's the water going? Where's the septic? That feeds right into the river that comes down through there. Okay? And secondly, the second thing is you guys know how hard it is to find somebody to do inspections. I know I talked to Ed about it and he got me one, but we want to do the whole road. It is very difficult to find the people listed there. They have no telephone numbers, we can't find them.
So we did put out a list in the newsletter from New Hampshire Lakes that lists a whole bunch of.
Well, I'm in touch with Martha, okay? And she hasn't given me that, okay? Because I'm trying to set up the whole road. Okay, because the other problem that we have is that it seems like some people will do like 8 inspections a day. Okay, but then I find that it depends upon whether their tanks are available or up, do they have to dig through it to find it? And so there's a lot of things going on there, and I'm trying to get a good price for the whole road if I can. Okay, because that's the way we want to do it. We want to do it and do it right. But we have a lot of other questions that are going on. Okay, because we understand that it's for water quality of Enfield, okay? But it's also inclusion of everybody, making sure that everybody is doing their job. Okay, and I want to know what steps are gonna happen to include all these other groupings of people that are not included in that first round. Because their people are not on the lake, but they're certainly adjoining the lake or the streams that are coming down into the lake. And they could cause more problems than anybody around the lake could. Okay, if their septic systems aren't working right or aren't even, some people might not even be connected to the sewer system.
I think you've made your point,
Okay,
okay? You're getting a little bit repetitious.
yeah, but are you going to come with steps? Are you gonna,
Our step has been the ordinance we've created. We recognize, and we've talked about this fact, that that is just step number one. At some point, we'll probably have to go further. We're not at that point yet. We haven't even really instituted the ordinance we created yet. I mean, some people have begun the process.
I thought it was, 1st of January. We were all told it was 1st of January.
You're right,
Okay, so you have instituted that.
yes. But what I'm saying is, what I think I meant was, there are a lot of people who are just grappling with it still.
I think other waterways will probably be added at some point in the future.
Yeah, but the thing is what, and I think if this became a court issue, you guys would have to say, what are your steps and when? Okay, because the fact that you instituted one piece of it, and we all agree with that. But you have to put the steps in what other areas you're gonna do and when.
We don't have to do that. We've created an ordinance. We're gonna push that ordinance through. Now, I realize you're being very noble here and wanting to do your whole road, but that is your issue. That's not our issue.
Except for the fact that you guys give you, now Ed said that he just gave Martha MLA. Okay, that's the first I've heard of that.
It was in the newsletter last month,
Yeah, but
the whole list.
I talked to Martha and I didn't get that, okay? Because I've talked to many inspectors, they're trying to get inspections, okay? But what I'm concerned with is that there is no, you guys aren't gonna put any deadlines or steps to take to look at this by this time, this one by this time, okay? And I think that's necessary.
Those steps are in the ordinance.
But for all these other
Oh,
feeding,
no, you mean the rivers?
yeah,
So you gotta be clear what you mean.
yeah, that's what.
No, we aren't there yet. How many times do I have to say that?
Yeah, but I'm saying that if this came to a court issue, I think they would.
You're not a lawyer, sir.
Okay, well,
Thank
we'll
you.
see.
Sir,
I agree with you that pretty much the whole watershed should be part of that, process. But my understanding coming from the hearings, about the ordinance was that, the state law at this point, the RSA's apply only to lakes and ponds, and not to streams, unfortunately. But that, and so the town unfortunately is not allowed to regulate the septic's.
That's not true.
Huh? Okay, you're coming away from that
We
impression.
can do that. The decision was made. Let's start with the lakes.
Yeah.
We have
I
an
agree.
administrative lead. We have an administrative lift and they're one of the direct
So
possible
the next
source
step, we can
impacts.
advocate for expanding.
Then we can look at possible expansion as soon as we get through the first year.
Allow us to learn how it's going to be implemented, allow us to implement it, allow us to observe the results and hear the concerns not only from yourself, but from others as well. And as we learn how things are coming online, we will be able to then begin to think about and potentially talk about looking at things like Knox River, for example. But allow us to get it online first and see how things are implemented before we start to talk about possible changes.
I guess I'm not sure, I don't understand then, because the fact that your implication was that we had to get it done by the end of the year.
Any place within 250 feet of the high
Right.
water mark of
And
Mascoma
that-
Lake.
Basically, all of the, around the lake.
Are those couple of places that you mentioned slightly off the lake
Yeah,
within
they're
two hundred and
off the
fifty
lake.
feet of the high?
They're
Are
on
they
the other
within
side,
250 of the high water?
But
They
they,
might be.
they're,
They might be,
they are
so therefore
right
they'd be
next to
included.
the water feeding into the lake.
If they're within 250 feet of the high water mark of Mascoma Lake, they're included, even if they're not on frontage.
Yeah, but they're not, I don't think they are.
So- Maybe I could help after the meeting. We could sit down and we'll talk about how to line up some inspectors.
Yeah.
And let's get our arms around this first step and then allow the board to maybe look at doing that second step at a future
Right.
date. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll grab you the number, maybe we talk tomorrow.
Thank you. Alice, you were gonna say something?
I thought that we had signed off on a Crystal Lake watershed management plan a little while ago, so I feel like
Yes.
there's already some sections of expansion in the works at least.
We're continuing to look at every possible source of pollution for our lakes. We're doing a Mascoma watershed management plan now through the city of Lebanon. And we actually just sat on a Teams meeting earlier today with DES on how to fill out the pre-application and how to move that forward. So we'll be getting that put in within the next month.
Helpful.
Yeah, we'll be looking at all those different possibilities. As we stated before, since our Crystal Lake area was part of the Mascoma Lake watershed, there's not a full watershed management plan for Crystal Lake, but there's been some of the work has already been done, and we should be able to maximize that $100,000 to do testing of Bicknell Brook entrance, some different things around there. She said with the money we have, depending on how much it got done, there may even be, some projects that we're able to get partially engineered with the $100,000, so we're closer to implementation.
Anything from the board?
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you all.
Yeah.